Okay, we're going to start eSword by double-clicking on the eSword icon on your desktop. Your desktop will look different than mine, but you do have the eSword icon, and you can start it there. Excuse me. A little splash screen comes up, and then eSword opens. There's this startup tip or tip of the day that shows up, and you can scroll through those, do the next tip, and go on through and look at those. If you don't want that to show every time, you would click this little box here where it says show tips at startup. Uncheck it and it will not show every time. If you leave it checked, once you say OK, it'll disappear, but then the next time you start the program, it'll show the tip. I usually don't like it there, so I unclick that and say OK. OK takes the box away. This is the basic screen for eSword, and what you have here are basically, on this one, is 3 different windows. There's actually 4, but I don't like to have 4 showing on my desktop for eSword, so I have it set up with just 3. This window is where the verses from the Bible are displayed. This window is where the commentaries are displayed. You'll notice underneath that I have 2 tabs here. One is for commentaries and one is for editors. Editor is another window, and I can flip between those tabs in that window. And I don't need a separate tab open for commentary and for editor. I mean to be open at both times, to both the same time, so I just open them separately. Down in the bottom right corner is where your dictionaries, your lexicons are down here displayed in this area. That's your dictionaries, lexicons, that sort of stuff. Okay, so when you click on any window, you'll notice that this bar at the top is highlighted. And to be highlighted then means that you have the option that is the active window in the forefront. On the left side it says Bible books, and here are your books of the Bible. And you can pick any one that you want, wherever it is, and whatever book. You can scroll down this, you can grab this scroll bar and you can pull it down, and you've got all the books. They're all there available for you. Then the next to it, all these numbers are the chapters in the particular book. So if we were to go to Deuteronomy, now it will show me how many chapters, 34, and I need to choose a chapter before it will display in this window. As you can see, there's no display for Deuteronomy yet. So if I choose Deuteronomy chapter 6, now Deuteronomy 6 is displayed in this window. All of Deuteronomy 6, all 25 verses. If I want to highlight a specific individual verse, then I will click on it. Anywhere in that verse I can click, and now that will be highlighted, and that will be my active verse. This is automatically keyed to the commentary, and it will give me the whatever the commentary that I have open will say on that. I personally don't use commentaries very much. This particular one that I have open here is Kyle and Deletes, which is a commentary on the Old Testament, and actually that's one that I will most often look at if I'm going to look at one. And it will display here, it'll display for verses 4 through 9. So any verse that I click in that range will be displayed up there. If I was to click on the verse before, it will display the different one. Okay, so I'm going to go back here and click on Deuteronomy 6:4 and leave that open. Alright, I have at the top above my display for the scripture I'm looking at, or the scriptures I want to look at, I have all these little tabs up here, and these all mean something. I may have more or different ones than you have on yours, but what these tabs are the different versions, different Bible versions that I have available. And I can flip through any of those, NIV's, New International Version. And as you hold the cursor over the tab, you'll see it'll display. It says New International Version. This one will say New King James Version. This one will say New Living Translation, Revised Standard. Any of these that I click on will bring it up and display the verses in that version that I specifically centered on the one that I have selected. So then I can read, like here, Young's Literal Translation. I've got all these different ones. One of those is Brenton. Now Brenton is the English translation from the Septuagint. So it'll bring that up and show me what it would be as translated from the Septuagint. One other point on Brenton is that there are more books available, and some versions will have these, and you can see them in blue here under the Bible books on the left side. The ones that are in blue, those are from the Apocrypha that are included in this case in Brenton's translation. Some other translations will have that, and so you can have access to like the book of First Maccabees if you want to read it. But I'm just going to stay here in Deuteronomy where I was, and we'll go back to get the King James version, and the KJV Plus is the King James version with strong numbers. Okay, that gives you access to the Strong's numbers in the verses, and then the lexicons that to look at those the definitions of those words. Okay, now I told you that they will display down here for the definitions. So we have different tabs here, and nothing's displayed as you can see, and there's a reason for that, and I'll show it to you in a minute. But we have different lexicons, dictionaries that are available. BDB is Brown Driver Briggs Hebrew Lexicon. Strong's is Strong's Hebrew and Greek dictionaries. TD&T is the Theological Dictionary of the New Testament, so that's going to deal with Greek words. We've got Thayer's Greek Lexicon, which is going to work with your New Testament words. There's this is you may not have that one. That's something to go with the Scriptures. This one up here, the 1998 version of the Scriptures. The TWOT, which I'll show you in a minute, is the Theological Word Book of the Old Testament, and then we've got Vine's Expository Dictionary of the New Testament on here as well. All right, go back to the Bible verse, and here in this case Deuteronomy 6:4 in KJV Plus, which has the Strong's numbers. What that allows you to do with the Strong's numbers is just put your cursor over one of those, and you'll see that it will pop up a little window, and it'll give you a definition just right there. And that definition is from Strong's Hebrew and Greek dictionary. So then in this case, because the Strong's number is preceded by an H, that tells you it's a Hebrew word. If we were in the New Testament, in fact we'll jump down to the New Testament. Let's pick a chapter, whatever. We'll just choose John chapter 14. It doesn't matter. You can pick any one you want. But then it's still in KJV Plus, King James Version with Strong's numbers. Down in here, the Strong's numbers are predicated with a G. So when I hover over it, it will show me the Greek word. That's what the G is for. All right, after I've looked at the verses here, let's say I clicked on this verse 5, I've highlighted that one. This commentary up here, K and D, will have nothing on that because that's only in the Old Testament. But notice all these with an I. That tells you that there is information in these particular commentaries. So if I wanted to look at that, I can click on any of those, and it will have a display for this particular verse or the range of verses in here. I'm not concerned about that. If you are, you can check those because they will actually change with where you go. And whenever it has that little blue eye, it's telling you there's information on these tabs that's keyed to this. And you'll notice over here, down here, it says there's something on TWOT, but I don't know what that's for. That's not anything there, so I just ignore that. The TWOT is not keyed to the Strong's numbers. I'm going to show you in a little bit how we can use that, and it's a really good tool. But if I was to be on this and say, let's put it on Strong's, because that one will always be able to key something to it, and I'll show you here real quick. Okay, nothing in there, but when I'm over this word, and let's say we wanted to look at whither thou goest. So the go here tells me it's Greek 52:17, and it gives me a definition right here, but if I go, I lose it if I try to go. But if I click on that, just a left click, it will open it up in this window down here. And with this, then I can scroll down and I can read it. That's my Strong's definition for this Greek word, hupago. Don't really speak Greek, but we can try to figure it out. But notice now there's this blue eye also on Thayer's. And Thayer is a Greek lexicon definition or dictionary. It gives you a definition different than Strong's, or very similar, but it's done by someone different. And you'll notice it tells you it's from this Strong's number and this one. And you can search those. If you want to look up the words that it's from, if you click on it, nothing happens. But if you you hover over it, the little window will pop up. But if you right click on it, you can look up that particular Greek word that is part of that. And when you want to return to the previous one, use this little arrow right here. You click on that and it'll go back to the previous one. And then I can scroll down on here and I can look at the other one. Right click, look up G71. And I can look at the definition. And if I want to look at it in Strong's, I just click on that tab. And it will flip back. I can flip to that one and then I can go back to Thayer's. It takes just a second to open it up, but it's there. I go back to Thayer's, wherever I want to be. I just click on those tabs and go back and forth. Okay, if I want to go back to the original one, the initial, I go back to the previous topic is what it's called, this little arrow. And that's the one that I just looked up. Okay, so I'm going to go back now to Deuteronomy. And the simplest way to do that, I could scroll this up and click Deuteronomy and go chapter 6 and verse 4, or I can come up here and go to previous reference, which is the previous verse. You can also go forward, or you can pull this scroll down, this little arrow right here, and you can pull a scroll down and I can grab the verse that I want. This will show all the verses that I have clicked on, that I've been to, that I've highlighted. Notice John 14:1 was highlighted because when I chose John chapter 14, it automatically started with the first verse. Okay, but I want to go to Deuteronomy 6:4, so I could either do that with these arrows, or I can pull it with this little arrow, this little down arrow, pull down my list, and just click Deuteronomy 6:4, and I will jump to it right there as quick as that. The Strong's numbers work just the same way. So let's say here, this is the Shema actually, but let's say I want to look up this word echad, which is Strong's 259. Now I want to click on it, and it's not going to display down here. It didn't change anything because I'm on Thayer's tab. So I'm going to go to Brown Drivers Briggs, which is when I'm in the Old Testament, I prefer to have it on BDB down here because I can see the Strong's definition in this little window when I hover over it. But then when I just left click, a regular click on it, it will open it up in here. And then I can read Brown Driver Briggs definition. In fact, I can have both of them open this way. I can see what Strong's is, what it says, and then I can compare it to the BDB definition. Okay, so we can look through all that. If I want to know more about it, I say, well, it's from this Achad, which I can right click, look it up, and look at it in BDB. When I hover over it, it shows it to me in Strong's definition. I can go back to my previous one just by this little click there, and then there it is open in Brown Drivers Briggs. Now, one of the things it has down here is the same word by TWOT number 61. This is where we actually get to the theological word book of the Old Testament, is we remember this number. As I said, it's not keyed to Strong's. You can't just click on that and have it do anything. It won't. So you remember the number. You come up here to TWOT, Theological Word Book of the Old Testament. And I really like the TWOT because it adds some depth and insight into things. So I click on that tab, and you'll see nothing there. But I remember it was 061, or it was number 61. I click in this right here, in this bar here, and it highlights the number that's there, which was the Strong's number, which won't help me. But I need 061. Now I can either pull this down till I get to 61, or I can type 0061. It's got to have 4 digits. And that brings it up, Echad. And now I have a definition in here that I can read. Now this window is kind of small, and if I want to read it large, we have the option to expand any of these particular windows to full screen. And that is up here. You'll see it up here. You'll see B, C, D, E, and E. And you'll also see one that's looks sort of like the screen down here. It's got different windows. And it says as you hover over it, show all windows. The B is Bible maximized. C is commentary maximized. D is dictionary maximized. And E is editor maximized. If I want to look at the TWOT here in the full screen, I will click on this D, maximizing my dictionary. And there it is. There's the TWOT definition for Echad. It's not really a definition. It's an article on it that talks about its usage in the Old Testament. And you can go through it and try to gain understanding. One of the things it does have, and you'll see all these verses that are in red that are referenced here. If you hover over that with your cursor, it will pop up a window and it will display that verse that is referenced. It will display it in what version of the Bible that you currently have open. So let's say right now that's in King James Plus, but let's say I want to change that. So I'll go back to this, to the window I had, and I'm going to change that. I'm going to read it in the Scriptures. And here it displays it here. I'm still on that TWOT number. I'm going to click this, and now when I go hover over it, it's going to display it in the version from the Scriptures. And that's the way you switch between those. Okay, I like to leave this window open except when I'm reading that. On the next installment, I will show you how the search function works. and we will explore that, because that's what gives you the capability to explore things, to search things out, and begin to put it together. And then you can in the process dig into the words and use the dictionary and the TWOT as I've just shown you.